Tanager is here for children, teens, young adults, and families as they navigate the many stressors of the world today. Tanager inspires, empowers, and heals by providing tools and support needed to navigate the hardships of life and overcome obstacles. Our expertise and specialty trainings offer a wide range of approaches, and we'll join alongside you to create solutions to enhance your wellness. We are here for you and your family. Tanager, inspire, empower, heal.
Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning proudly present Together We Rise,
a series based on the Rise, Wellness, and Resilience framework.
In times of uncertainty and adversity, it is easy to feel overwhelmed and disheartened.
Amidst the challenges our community may face,
let us never lose sight of the strength and resilience that also resides in our neighborhoods.
This series highlights the vital role each of us have in nurturing that resilience.
That community impact.
The power and influence each of us have to show up in spaces
with empathy,
openness,
and kindness.
Because it is in this collective that connections grow stronger,
our compassion shines brighter,
and our spirit rises even higher.
It is together
that we rise.
Welcome back for another segment of Together We Rise. Here with you today are your co-hosts Tanya
and Maggie.
And I'm so honored to introduce our guest with you today, LaNisha. LaNisha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be with you today. Again, my name is LaNisha Cassel. I am the director of the African American Museum of Iowa, and I've been with the museum about 8 years. Prior to that, I was with the Marian School Foundation, and I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I've been in Iowa for almost 20 years.
You know, it's so neat hearing your journey and hearing your story and the experiences you even have every day, the work you do in this community. Tell us a little bit about your why. And especially when you think about it, how it connects to wellness and how it connects to resilience and how we make this community a stronger place for everyone.
Sure. Well, you know, it's interesting. When I first moved to Cedar Rapids, some of the things that really made an impact on me was my ability to be able to live in a community where I could be able to work part-time and be able to spend time with my children. And so I was able to do a part-time job and be able to volunteer at school and volunteer at church and the things that I really wanted to do and felt passionate about. And as my children got older, I really realized that I wanted to do some things that were intentional about teaching them their own history and culture. And there were things about the museum that attracted me when I first realized that there was a need for a new director there. So when the opportunity came, I thought, you know what? I really would love to be able to be a part of that. Yeah. And I don't think I realized the impact that it would have on my life and on the decisions that I made until I got there and realized what the museum is all about and how we are so integral in educating not only the Black community, but all of Iowa about history that may not be shared in schools and other traditional formats. So that's something that really became a part of, my passion at the museum and in just the way I live and, go about the community in my daily routine.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that power of educating across the community, not just a certain group of people, but everybody in the community and how that is connected to what you really want to be doing in your role.
A lot of folks do believe that the museum maybe only exists for people of color. Yeah. And I'm like, my first response is usually sarcasm, and I try to, well, what if that was the case? We wouldn't have an audience, right? So it really does boil down to educating all of Iowa about the history that may not be available through school and other traditional resources. And it is important that everybody knows the history that's been left out, whether or not it resonates with you personally. And usually it does, because we tell stories about being allies too, not just about the African American struggle, but along with that comes allyship and resilience. And so it's important that we all know that history. I saw a young woman come in and with a group, and she was in the lobby, and I can tell that she was emotional. And it turned out that she had seen her grandmother in the exhibit and did not know that her grandmother was in the exhibit, and I don't remember who it was, honestly, at this point. But and that's something that I see on a regular basis, people who come in and something resonates with them. But that was so personal, to go into an exhibit at a museum and see somebody in your family. I don't even know if her grandmother was alive when she was born, but she recognized right away that her grandmother was in the exhibit, and it was emotional for her. And I love that, because so often, and particularly people of color, the history sometimes isn't available. So it was really impactful to see that, and it just made me feel more passionate about what I do. And yeah.
It's almost this place where allows someone to feel a sense of belonging.
How important that is to see some of
Representation.
myself, right, in something that's in a museum. Like that's powerful, right?
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
some of my history in this space, for that person to walk in and see, wow, I am part of this.
Yes, and a part of something greater than myself, and something, there's a legacy, you know. Yeah, I think that's very powerful. And not being from Iowa, and our museum focuses on Iowa history, but it's still impactful to me. I'm like, wow, that is pretty cool. And my children, who are Iowans, they were born here, they get to go in and see, hey, wait a minute, I know who that is. Or, you know, a student who goes to Viola Gibson. They might not even know, I'm sure they teach Viola Gibson history at Viola Gibson Elementary School, but it's still to see her and some of the things that they might not see at the school in the museum, that's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful, yeah.
Because I can't imagine, you know, but thinking about that sense of belonging and how deeply that also makes me feel seen. It makes me feel like I can tell a story, be part of a story. Tell us about that and just the power for resilience and wellness for us to do storytelling.
Well, I think when we talk about that why and telling people stories, I don't think some people realize they even have a story to tell. And so it's all about kind of like having that conversation, kind of like we're doing, and suddenly you realize there is a story to be told, and everybody has one. And being able to pull that out, we do oral histories, and that's a lot of interviewing with people, and just being able to pull out that story that you didn't think you might have had, or that you wanted to share and didn't have a platform to share it. And so we're able to do that in our exhibits, in our programs, and it really, I think it's a healing in a lot of ways, and it's exciting. And I think it can be powerful in terms of motivating and inspiring you to have your own, what do you want to do? You know, how do I want to make an impact? And I think we are able to do that through what we do at the museum.
I love that because you have a piece of like looking back when you storytell, and that does some of that healing of past hurts, but then also storytelling looking forward of like what's possible for you in the future. And you need both of those pieces, I think, for resilience and for wellness, is like you need to have a story to kind of explain where you came from, and also you need a story to say, where am I going?
Absolutely. I think one of the things we've been trying to do over the last few years is tell more real-time history. You know, history definitely is powerful to know the foundation, right? 300 years ago, 400 years ago, but you know, yesterday is history, right? So talking about things that are happening, especially as we're trying to make sure that younger people have access to that. And I think sometimes it depends on what's appealing to a person who is a college-age student or who's a young professional. And it may not be something to do with George Washington Carver, although that's significant. What about what happened during protests in 2020? And so having to be able to tell those kind of like more recent history gets them in the facility or engage with us, and then we have an opportunity to share with some of the other stuff. So it's like, okay, we got to grab you, and now we got to get in there. And so, and they don't even maybe realize that they needed that. Yeah.
You know, I think it's something important for us to talk about in this segment, and I think these are hard conversations, but we have these hard conversations because they matter, is that, you know, we're in a divisive political climate, you know, in times in which oftentimes you pick sides, or we are not as open and curious, and we're not listening, we're not hearing. That's like the essence of the museum, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For people who wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable to go do that yet, but they're on like what we'd call in therapy that pre-contemplative state, or how do we open those doors? What can we do to create more of these conversations? Because when we create conversations, when we have relationships, it breaks down so many of these barriers.
It does. You know, I like when we have small groups, and there's a lot of tours because of the student groups, and I think that's significant. But I think when people come in, well, one, with an open mind. Our intention is not to guilt people, right? There may be things that are hard, but you know, the intention is for you to learn so that you can know what happened, so that you know where you are now, and engaging and reflecting, and then having that conversation. We encourage those type of facilitated conversations where people can really talk. And I think that really is powerful to be able to have those deep conversations. I think people knowing that they're going to come in and learn something, and that they can contribute. It's not just let me learn about all the bad stuff or whatever it is. It's like, how can I be empowered now to make a difference in my community, in my own household? You know, sometimes it just starts at home.
Maggie, it made me think, because I know you've gone on such a journey of understanding your own white privilege, and you said a word, LaNisha, you said guilt. Maggie, can you speak to that a little bit, and how, as white people, we can reach a place of being more curious about that so that we can be better allies and advocates, so we can have a diversity mindset.
Yeah, there's so much, right, that comes up in some of those spaces. Learning some of that stuff is so hard for some folks. And I think especially for folks who are deep feelers, like deeply empathetic, like I walk into that space maybe and I see all this harm that has been caused, and like how do I as an empathetic person sit with that and separate some of like what's mine to own, what's somebody else's to own, but then what's my responsibility moving forward and moving through that. And I think, you know, when you talk about people coming in, and you don't want to have anybody feel guilt or experience like guilt, but experience learning, experience curiosity, experiencing like moving through how are you part of making a community and making a group of people stronger and more well.
Absolutely. I think that there's a confusion sometimes with that whole like, we want you to feel guilty versus we want acknowledgement. You know, like acknowledge that this happened, acknowledge that it's real, acknowledge that just because it might have been X number of years ago, that it's still impactful now. And I think that would go such a long way. But I think so many more people are open to having those conversations. And sometimes group settings, maybe not ideal. I've had the most meaningful conversations one-on-one. And then that person will talk to that person. And I've learned something too. It's not just me imparting something, it's me receiving something as well. And then be able to share that with my own family, with my staff, with my board, with the people in the community that I engage with in boards and commissions and things like that. So
I have to imagine that you also have to come from a space of so much openness in those conversations, because I can't imagine that folks are going to walk away from a conversation with you feeling like they're open and curious to learn unless you also are like reflecting openness and curiosity about them and their stories. So like talk a little bit about that role that you play.
You know, some people express being tired. You know, like I'm tired of the, you know, I haven't reached that point yet, right? I'm still, and I recognize that my role, you know, so many people say, oh, I'm not a leader, I didn't mean, well, I recognize that I'm in a position where, you know, whether or not I wanted to be there or not, people are looking to me for answers. And my team, I try to empower that because I don't do anything on my own. My team is what makes me be able to really do the things that I do and shine if that's the case. But making sure that people know that I want to hear it. You know, there's no dumb question. Well, you know, within a reason, right? There's no dumb question. I mean, if somebody literally has legitimate and real, sincere,
Like authentic, yes.
You know, because somebody may ask the worst question ever. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you said that to somebody else, that might not have been received as well. But you know, because I know you're authentic, I am willing to go there with you and really give you, because I don't want you to say that thing to that person. I want you to understand what it means when you said that and how it's been received, and maybe that wasn't your intent. And I've had that conversation with some friends, you know, because I think I am a person that people see as approachable, and I'm glad. And so I want to be able to use that so that you can now say, okay, I can ask that question, maybe I can rephrase it and ask somebody else the same thing to get their perspective, because I don't represent every person of color, but maybe, you know, that perspective is something that might be a good thing, and I'm learning too. So it's definitely a give and take type of a thing.
Assuming positive intent, building bridges. Like, what a healthier community we could be if we all just approach every day like that. But it takes a certain energy. It takes a certain humbleness to do that. It takes a certain ego check to do it. Tell me about that. When you see some people come into the museum the most ready to learn, what characteristics are they presenting with?
A big indicator to me is when someone comes in when they have lots of questions and that they spend time. I had a woman who traveled, I forgot where she traveled from, but it was definitely like a 4-hour, like an overnight type of a drive, you know, like she sat cross-legged in this exhibit space 4 hours, and she was reading everything, and then when she was done, she stayed till closing, and she came to me and I said, I will be here tomorrow, and she said, I'm coming back. And she came back the next day and stayed the entire day again, because she was so
That is incredible.
passionate about what she was reading. She was really enthralled. I love that. See, people are really open. So there's a lot of characteristics, I think, that kind of show you're open to it. And, you know, just be asking questions, just one of those. But I think just being engaged, spending the time, coming back, asking for more content. You know, there's all of those things.
And you guys have other, like, different exhibits coming in and out, right? So there's always reasons to come back. There's always reasons to
Our
go and
programs
learn more.
that we do, and you know, we do them virtually. We have presentations, workshops, the traveling exhibits. We have a lot of resources, I think, that are available, and we always say hashtag not just February. But obviously we want to celebrate and share that education in February, but it's all year long. It's every day. So, yeah.
If we want this community to be as resilient and to be centered on wellness, one of the things that we have to do as community members is to create an inclusive community environments, relationships, interactions that honor and foster a sense of belonging. What does that word mean to you?
Embracing, welcoming, and just kind of like our demeanor speaks so much when people are in front of us. You know, you could be having a bad day, but it could have such a lasting impression if it's, if you present that way. And so I think making sure that we always have that time to say, yes, I welcome you to ask those questions or to come visit. And everybody may not have the capacity for that, but I think that when we start speaking the language that says you're welcome, not cliches, but just honest, authentic, whatever that might look like, and recognizing that depending on who you're talking to, it might not be the same as the last person you spoke to. Recognizing that everybody isn't the same and we might receive information differently. I think that's important, to be authentic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've talked a little bit about these are some divisive times right now, but I wonder what kinds of things you're seeing that give you a lot of hope for this sense of belonging in our community and the way that that's maybe going in the right direction. Like what can we hold on to?
I think there's a lot of strides. I think we talk about language. I know the city is trying to embrace, welcome is our language, and really trying to walk that out. I see that in the different organizations that do social services or the arts and culture community in particular. I love that we've been doing a lot of collaborative things. We collaborate with Museum of Art. We've collaborated with Indian Creek Nature Center.
Oh, cool.
And some of them just seem like
That's awesome.
unlikely collaborations, and we don't try to force it. We try to do things that are natural and that make sense. But I see that. I see a lot of collaborative efforts happening. I see outreach from, say, the Community Foundation, really trying to do things. I see a lot of inclusive activities, or even just people making statements on their web pages, or just public statements through their board, whatever that might be. I think that I am hopeful when I see.
Yeah, it goes back again to
intention.
That acknowledgement, right? You're seeing folks acknowledge that this is something we need to be doing. This is an effort that we want to, that we value, that everybody feels
There's intentionality,
like
I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's not just let me just wait until the opportunity comes. Let's make a positive, intentional statement or action or plan, and I think that's important, and I think I feel that.
You know what word then I just am collaborate as a vehicle to a sense of belonging, right? That when I'm asking you to collaborate, I'm asking for your voice, when we're recognizing the purpose and the meaning, how deep that helps someone feel a sense of belonging.
Right, we're working on this together, right? If I'm asking for your support, if I'm asking for your involvement in this, that means that I want you to be part of this. You belong in this space
beyond
too.
the lip service. It's more. We're going to actually do something together, and it's going to make an impact, and it's going to be meaningful for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
I hear a lot of people say, well, I didn't think it was my role. I didn't think my voice mattered. I didn't think, I've said this before. Why do I need to say this again? But it matters. Our voices matter. Feeling that sense of empowerment to know that we can continue to make a difference matters.
Yeah, absolutely. It does matter. It does. And that's a good point. I think so many people are just I'm going to live my life, and may not react until something happens directly to you, right? And that's understandable. A lot of times we suddenly you become something that becomes your mission. It's because something happened to make that happen, and that's okay. That gives you more passion about that. I think we don't have to wait until something happens to us. We should be watching and observing our community and engaging in that way. There's been initiatives that I've taken on, not because of the museum, but because my kids may have been involved in, or because I had a neighbor or a friend who suddenly it was a thing. I'm like, I need to be more active in that. Why wasn't I before? And just really being attentive and intentional.
I think that if we're thinking about that idea of belonging, when we think that we're all part of this, really it gets to the point of what happens to you matters to me too, right? Because what happens to you is going to influence your wellness, which has a direct reflect on how my wellness goes. We're so
Ripple
intricately
effects.
tied, right?
The impact is larger. I think all the things that we do, if we think about ourselves in isolation, we never realize the impact that all the things we do, every decision we make impacts somebody else, something else, even if you don't see it oftentimes. So even when we look at our exhibit development, we have team meetings to discuss that. We have other advisors, because we know, and obviously we don't want to not do something because it might have, because of the impact. We want to be aware of and considerate of the impact that things might have.
When we cultivate that empathy, when we choose empathy, when we choose to recognize that, okay, maybe this didn't happen to me, but thinking about, had it happened to me, you know, and if it happened to a loved one, you know, like it matters, right? Our relationships and our interconnection into this world matters. That as a community, as strong as some of the most struggling parts of this community.
Yes, yes. It reminds me of when we had those that week of very, very cold weather, and I remember going to my house thinking, "Oh, whew, it's so cold," you know.
Yes.
It dawned on me suddenly that there are people outside who don't have anywhere to go for various reasons, and you know. How's that? And although I didn't feel like I had capacity to do anything about that, it had me thinking about what's being done. You know, are there more places that are opening up today or this week? Are they extending hours at places? How is it? Is the libraries closed because of the weather? That's where people go. So it makes you think, you know, and then it's like, okay, the next step is like, what can I do, right? And I think if we all thought that way, there'd probably be a lot more things happening.
If we stop and we think about tiny actions that we can take, how truly powerful some of those small things are. And so sometimes I think we maybe get discouraged and we say, well, I can only do this little thing. And so it's not really going to make a difference if I do it or if I don't do it. But man, it does make a difference, right? And there's so much power in like recognizing that what I do, however small, has this ripple effect, like you said.
Yes, it truly does. In our exhibit, our modern protest exhibit, that it was crazy the way that happened because we were planning that exhibit before the George Floyd. Oh, wow. And everything was was at the printer. So we said, wait, we need to stop because we wanted to make sure we captured what was happening in the state. And one of the things we included in that exhibit were little, it was a rack that had little like business card size cards, and it was actions. And it was really designed for children, but anybody could take it. And it was like, you know, call your legislator, write a letter, you know, do a sign, check on your neighbor, just the things. And I sent that to one of my friends for her son's birthday, and he was probably turning like 8 or 9. And she thought that was the best. I'm sure he didn't think so, but she thought that was the best present. And all of the gifts that came was that little set of cards to give him ideas that they can do as a family to help in their community. And sometimes you just need to tell people what they can do.
Absolutely. I love that idea for an exhibit of like, because I think a lot of times people walk in there and they're just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I know I want to do something. I know I want to be part of like the good, but I don't know what to do. And just having those simple things that you can pull and be like, oh, it takes the pressure off of like having to know the right thing to do.
It does. And sometimes you might have thought of it eventually, but you just need that collective, you know, sometimes that's energy coming together. And the next thing you know, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was so easy. I could do that. And it's amazing. It's very empowering, uplifting, and you feel like you've done something. And then it's maybe sparks something else for you to do.
Which I do think at that time, like people really wanted to feel like they could do something. Like that was such a big thing, is like, really, how can I be part of the solution? And you saw that across businesses, you saw that across a ton of different areas and arenas. Are there ways that you can still hold on to some of that energy? Like, you don't want to lose that energy of people wanting to be part of the solution. Like, are there things that you all have done to like harness some of that, keep some of that going?
I think the biggest thing for us is to be able to make sure that people don't think that the content has disappeared. And so one of those is that for our traveling exhibits, we try to get those into communities still. And people are still asking for some of the exhibits that we had up, you know, for instance, the redlining exhibit. That was the last exhibit we had up before we closed for renovation, but the traveling exhibits are now available. So, and people are asking for them. They want to know in their communities where this happened, but also like, what can we do now? Should I call out that realtor or that mortgage company or that financial institution who said that the interest rate for that person is going to be that much higher than that person? Because these things still exist. So what can we do? And it's those types of things, calling out something that you hear in your own circle. But that's hard. That's hard. What if it's like your friend? What if it's a family member?
And that goes to belonging too, right? Like, am I going to risk this sense of belonging that I have over here to be challenged by somebody that they respect and that they love? You know, that is sometimes the most powerful thing, right? To be like, ooh, I really respect you. I really respect what you think. And I said this thing and you thought, ooh, that was not. You know, that's how we can sort of use some of our privilege, right? Sometimes in those contexts.
I was really challenged. We had a gentleman called, and he told me that he really was like, I need to do something. I feel like this, like I need to do something and I don't know what to do help me. And I was like, oh my God. You know, like, and so we talked, I just asked him a bunch of questions, and he wasn't ready to like make a public stand. Like he's like, he's a white guy. He said, I really want to do something. I don't know where to start. I'm not ready to do anything public. And he wasn't even really ready to do anything with his family. He felt like his family was an issue. Like he needed to say something, but he wasn't ready. I said, so what are you ready to do? Because I was really struggling. I didn't know what to tell him, honestly.
Beautiful question.
Yeah.
Are you a therapist?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I need.
Raise 2
right?
kids, you know
right?
what she
There you go. Thank you. So we started to really kind of just chat, and I said, okay, let me think about my resources. So what I ended up doing was connecting him with people who were involved with racial reconciliation. Thank God I had some of these contacts I have, I'm like, what am I going to do with some of them? I mean, obviously they come in handy. And so I was able to connect him with 3 different organizations or individuals who were working on racial reconciliation, because he could go and talk with them, and they could help him figure out how to approach family members, community members, neighbors, all of those things. And I felt like I didn't really give him much, but he was so grateful for even that as a start. So I was like, okay, yay, there's a reason why I don't think anything's arbitrary. I appreciate having resources at my disposal. And even though the museum as an organization wasn't the tool he utilized, he was able to still connect with the community. And so that was, I wonder, I should have kept his contact information to call him and see how that went. That was like 3 years ago. But,
I love that story, because what a testament to the work that you all do there, right? Like this person just knew that he wanted to do something, didn't know what, but in our community had an opportunity to say, here's a place I can go, or I can call and say, I need to do something, I don't know what it is. And to be met with, this is great, let me connect you with some resources, let me connect you with some folks.
I never think the museum will be a resource for the things, some of the things people call us for. I mean, you would be amazed at some of the things we get. But if I get the call, I really want to be able to help do something. You know, I might not have the answer, but like maybe you can get it there. And so we try.
Even if they're not getting it there, it goes back
connecting.
to that
Some people want to talk.
connection,
Some
right?
people want to connect.
Connection, resource, because it gives meaning, it gives purpose.
I do like the feeling of letting somebody know that they matter. No matter what it is they want. It might seem like it's not a big deal. It might seem trivial, it might seem, but it's their thing, and they want something, and to be able to let them know that it does matter, and to hopefully get them in the right direction does help. Makes you feel good.
This community is lucky you came 20-some years ago, and that you didn't head back out.
Tell my mother. She's still asking, when are you coming home? I'm like, that ship has sailed, Mom.
So thank you for being here today, but for your voice, for everything you do, how much it makes a difference in this community. It matters a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Stay tuned. Next time on Together We Rise. You're leveraging people's strengths. You're giving them purpose. You're helping them create, improvement in their community. It increases their sense of efficacy.
Point of it, it's not volunteering, it's just our way of life. And that probably gets to the whole efficacy and resiliency too. Like if we can just get to that point where we're just helping each other.
No matter the challenges you and your family face, Tanager is here for you. We'll meet you wherever you are in your journey, and together define a path to reach your goals. Together we rise.
Thank you for joining us today and for spending time with us. We hope today's segment offered hope and inspiration. Today's series brought to you by Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning. For more information, please visit our website at www.tanagerplace.org.